It is my privilege to introduce Professor Maria Zuber, the Presidential Advisor for Science and Technology Policy and the E.A. Griswold Professor of Geophysics in the Department of Earth, Atmospheric, and Planetary Sciences here at MIT. Professor Zuber draws upon a deep knowledge of cutting-edge research to inform and advance state and federal policy. In this role, she also provides strategic direction to campus labs, centers, and initiatives connected to defense or national security and represents MIT with external stakeholders. Professor Zuber has expertise that bridges planetary geophysics and the technology of space-based laser and radio systems. She served as MIT's Vice President for Research for more than a decade and spearheaded MIT's Climate Action Plan. She has contributed leadership to more than 10 NASA missions and has been recognized with the MIT James R. Killian Jr. Faculty Achievement Award, the highest honor the MIT faculty bestows upon one of its own. Professor Zuber has advised 4 U.S. presidential administrations, beginning with her appointment to the President's Commission on the Implementation of United States Space Exploration Policy by President George W. Bush in 2004. President Obama appointed her to the National Science Board in 2013, and she was reappointed by President Trump in 2018. President Biden appointed Professor Zuber to co-chair the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology in 2021. It is truly an honor to welcome Professor Maria Zuber to the stage.
Okay, thank you, Marie, and a big congratulations to Christine, your team, the faculty, students, alums. Fantastic. We're in the 50th year and getting stronger and better as we go along. So I'm here to talk about a new cross-cutting presidential initiative. As you know, President Kornbluth is instituting a number of initiatives on campus. And I have a new role. I stepped down as Vice President for Research, and I'm now advising Sally on science and technology policy. And we started talking, and she said, you know, do you think the institution would be interested in raising its game on policy and doing more, okay? And I said, well, I don't know, but why don't we see? And so I got the green light to explore, first of all, setting the landscape of what we do now in policy, and then seeing if there was any appetite to do things differently or to do more of it. So just the process that I went through. Late last winter, we did a survey of the faculty, the research staff, and our student leaders just to get a sense of how much interest there was in policy. Then I held a bunch of individual discussions with faculty, staff, and some students. I talked with the MIT Executive Committee, and these are people who care deeply about MIT, but they have an external perspective. So they have actually really interesting thoughts about how things play, both inside and outside of MIT. And since the idea with policy is increasing MIT's positive impact in the world, that makes some sense to get their thoughts. And then I recruited a faculty steering committee who I'll show you in a couple of slides from now. And that committee's been meeting all summer, essentially, and has come up with the plan that we have here today. So here are some of the observations that we found when we polled people. So everybody was excited that the president was interested in amplifying MIT's policy efforts. Of course, the policy people thought this was a great idea, but there were a lot of people who had no involvement whatsoever in policy. More than half the responses that we got were from people who don't do any policy, who said, well, now that's kind of interesting, but I have no idea how to get involved in policy. And so that's an opportunity. everybody thought that what we do in policy right now is actually really good, and that don't break what works, okay? So, so keep what we have that's good and just figure out how to coordinate it and make it better. Everybody wishes they had more funding. This constrains the growth. How big should we be? That was a question. We also got feedback that not everything we do in policy is contingent upon having a lot of funding like some of the other things that we do on campus, although some things that are computationally intensive certainly do. We don't minimize what it costs to do a good piece of work. And the students were just wildly enthusiastic about doing more, okay? Our current policy centers, again, individually excellent, but largely unconnected, okay? So there's an opportunity for coordination. And because they're disconnected, this is the classic MIT let 1,000 flowers grow, where we have lots of pockets of really good work going on, but many from the outside don't see us as a powerhouse. We have that issue we had it in computing before we had the college. We had it in climate before we had the climate project, and we have it in policy. So it's a very common attribute of MIT, where we encourage innovation to come up wherever it is. Researchers who might be interested don't even know where to start. They don't know who to call if they had an interest in policy. We have a DC office. Because you're policy people, you probably know about that office, but a lot of people don't know about that office as a resource. And so it's a resource that is unknown to many parts of the campus. And then we also got feedback that we have kind of a current situation now in Washington with a federal disruption that's impacting universities. But while there are threats to universities, we got to power through and keep doing what we do best, okay? So there was a very, very strong feeling that maybe there's no better time to amplify our policy efforts than now, when it's needed most. Okay, so kinds of policy. So I just want to say, we have issues with endowment taxes, indirect costs. This is not the kind of policy we're taught. We're hiring a new vice president for government affairs. It's a new position at MIT, and that office is going to handle these existential threats that we have. They're going to coordinate it. The kind of policy that we're talking about is kind of science for policy, using the science that we have, the science that we do, to inform policies and regulations, and also think about the societal impacts of new and advancing technologies and the policies that might enable them. So really increasing the possible impact of technological discoveries that we make. Okay, so I'm not going to go, this is everything we've heard today. I mean, you see so many examples of the kinds of topics that were discussed in the very interesting panels today, and these are all the kinds of things that will be in play as part of this initiative. And so, so I want to emphasize that this is cross-cutting. So MIT has, Sally has wanted to start initiatives, in quantum, in education, in health, in climate, and there are certain things, now like policy, that cross-cut all of those, that influence all of those. So like computing, innovation, and now policy really are going to make all those initiatives more effective. And so we're going to be a cross-cutting initiative. So, and the idea here is to inform policies that facilitate the transition of discoveries, provide objective, nonpartisan analyses, so qualitative and quantitative modeling, data analysis, and then we also can support federal, state, local, international government organizations for societal benefit. So So here's the steering committee. We have representatives from all 5 schools in the college. They've worked incredibly hard on this and with great dedication, and a subset of that group, we've made an executive committee which is going to do more operational type things, and Christine is a very, very active member on this, just so you know that TPP is all represented. So we're going to have a one-stop shop for policy inquiries. All of the policy efforts that we have now are going to stay where they're at, but we're going to have some space in Sloan that Rick Locke has offered up to us. We will have a website where you can go and just, I'm interested in policy, and somebody's going to get back to you and start the conversation about how we can help. A searchable database of information of what we've already done, and track and highlight relevant events across the Institute. And it's exceedingly appropriate that we're announcing this at the TPP anniversary because of the fact that among the steering committee deliberations, it was very clear that education was going to play an incredibly central role. And so, we're going to, Christine is going to actually convene a committee of TPP faculty and others in other policy areas around campus to look at what we might do in the graduate programs and also the undergraduate programs. We've got a policy minor, but should we be doing things that are in addition to that? Support for researchers, so we're going to have seed funding, and we're also hoping to hire a couple of postdocs that we would have on the staff who would be able to provide both modeling, data analysis support and qualitative support of people trying to do policy efforts. With the hiring of the Vice President for Government Affairs, we will think about the way that the Washington office is structured and see if we should be doing things differently or if we should be doing more in terms of interactions with the campus. And so there are some opportunities there. That office already, I think, punches above its weight in terms of what it does, but clearly there's more that we can do there. And then we're not talking about, we're in a constrained fiscal time and an uncertain time, so we're not talking about a lot of adding lots of faculty positions here, but we could think about strategic partnering. So that's the summary. We're off, okay? We're going to hope to, focus on some ideas, seed grants in the spring semester, and we'll get started. And we're really trying to build a coalesced community of policy across the Institute and take a lot of efforts that we have individually and turn it into a cohesive whole that really amplifies MIT's ability to provide positive input to policymakers at all levels. So thank you very much, and again, congratulations, Christine. So.